Jewishnews TV. Making news this week. The president of the Zionist Council of Victoria has slammed a Victorian church newspaper after it printed an unbalanced article detailing the editor's trip to Israel. Dr. Danny Lamb called the article in Crosslight inaccurate and a malicious distortion. It spoke of Palestinians losing their homes and hopes to Jewish extremists. Dr. Lamb claims the piece gave one-sided reports of protests in West Bank towns. The magazine's editor has agreed to his offer of a meeting to discuss the article. Also this week, New South Wales Treasurer Eric Rusendahl has continued to campaign against extremist political candidates, calling on opposition leader Barry O'Farrell to disendorse the Liberal candidate for the entrance. Chris Spence twice stood as a candidate for Pauline Hanson's One Nation party. The candidate, however, told the AJN this week that he'd made a mistake aligning himself with One Nation. We now cross to Aaron Shapiro for the world headlines.
Thanks, Lexi. The two biggest international news stories this week both centered around Israel. Reports of an impending prisoner exchange deal between Israel and Hamas that may lead to the release of captive IDF soldier Gilad Shalit dominated Israeli news headlines earlier this week. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced a 10-month settlement freeze in an attempt to lure the Palestinian Authority back to peace talks. PA President Mahmoud Abbas promptly rejected the overture, calling it inadequate because it failed to include East Jerusalem in the freeze. Back to you, Lexi.
So Aaron, how likely is it that Gilad Shalit will be released before Hanukkah?
Well, Lexi, you know, Hanukkah is a time for miracles, and it would be really too much like a movie script almost if he were to be released at that time. But I think that everyone should keep in mind the Palestinian elections. Now, there is a milestone up ahead that really is affecting the time of his release, because Hamas wants to put itself in a good position for the elections, and releasing Gilad Shalit and getting all those Palestinian prisoners back in return would go a long way to help them with that.
Well, our prayers are with Gilad Shalit and his family. Now to arts news. You might not recognise his name, but you've probably seen his movies. Yisrael Izzy Lifshutz has starred alongside some of Tinseltown's biggest names, but as his new film reveals, his most notable role was changing Hollywood's views of Orthodox Judaism. We spoke to the Hasidic Hollywood actor ahead of his journey to Australia for the release of his film, Chag, the story of the Hasidic Actors Guild.
The film is a hybrid of fact and fiction of my life, but the whole purpose was leading to tell the story of tshuva, or of returning to the fold, if you will.
And you can hear Lifshutz speak at the Jewish House Gala Dinner on December 1, or see his film in Sydney's Bondi Pavilion on December 2. Also in arts news, opposition leader Malcolm Turnbull had a break from politics ahead of his party room showdown when he opened artist Camille Fox's latest exhibition. Titled A Memoir in Colour, the artworks explore her Jewish roots in Egypt.
Camille evokes an era that is gone and can never be recreated, at least in Alexandria. An era of cosmopolitanism, of a remarkable convivencia between people of different races and religions.
And you can view Fox's work at the Francis Keeble Gallery until December 7. Now for the sports headlines, here's David Weiner.
Thanks, Lexi. It's a big weekend for Sydney Maccabi's futsal side coming up. 6 points from this weekend's doubleheader will propel the side to the lead of the New South Wales Super League with just 4 rounds to play. They've been boosted by Anthony Toe's selection in the New South Wales Lightning side, the state squad for 17 to 23-year-olds. There are also table-topping Jewish sides in the Eastern Suburbs Touch Football Association, the highest of which is the Mariah All Boys and Girls Mixed side, equal first in the top division with a quarter of the season gone. To Melbourne, the Maccabi Ajax cricketers have gone back-to-back, thanks to that man again, Captain Dave Gelbard, who skittled Chelsea with a 6-wicket haul. We end off with some international news, and rumours persist that former Chelsea football coach Avram Grant is about to return to the English Premier League with Portsmouth. If we believe the reports, he could be in the post by this time next week. They're the sports headlines. It's back to you, Lexi.
Thanks, David. Coming up next week, we look at the Executive Council of Australian Juries annual conference taking place this weekend in Sydney. For all these stories and more, check out the Australian Jewish News, available every Thursday from your local newsagent. And log on to jewishnews.net.au for all the latest in news and views in the Jewish world. I'm Lexi Landsman, and this is Jewish News TV.